What's up guys, it's Untitled Studios here, and today we're going to be doing the full review of the Apple iPhone 6s Plus. Now, I actually did a review just a week ago of the iPhone 6 Plus, but I never uploaded that video because the 6 Plus died in the middle of the video. I got kind of mad, and it broke, and it was not a good video. So I will forego the 6 Plus review probably indefinitely, because after buying two iPhone 6 Pluses that had touch disease and spending $200 in phones and them all being worthless piles of trash, I decided not to waste any more money on the iPhone 6 series. So the iPhone 6s Plus is what I'll be checking out today. Now this one's the same color as the 6 Plus, so it feels right at home, but it's the 6S Plus. It's also 32 gigs. The 6 Plus I have was 64. What are you gonna do? So we have the iPhone 6s Plus. We got your lovely little Touch ID right there, which conveniently isn't working. There it goes. So we have iOS 12.3.1 as of making this video, and it's an iPhone. What is there to talk about? So, regarding all the same topics that we've talked about before, let's talk about the design. Now, the design of the iPhone 6s Plus is nearly identical to the iPhone 6 Plus, only the thing isn't a poorly built, horrible, bendable, breakable, dentable, touchscreen not respondable piece of shit. This is actually a really good design. It's a little bit heavier than the 6 Plus, so if you've held a 6 Plus, the 6s Plus is the slightest bit weightier, which does make it feel a little bit nicer, a little bit more premium, and it's also just, it feels good. It feels fine in the hand. It has the curved edges, so your fingers kind of wrap around it, and it's a very comfortable phone to hold. I think it's too wide, mainly. I think it's honestly too wide. If you compare it to the Galaxy Note 4, the Note 4 is a little bit thinner. Well, maybe not. They're pretty much the same width, I would say. The 6s Plus is a little bit taller, but that's okay. The Note 5, which is what this would actually be comparing to, is much thinner and also has a bigger screen. And then when you compare it, because this has the same design as the 7 and the 8, compare it to the Galaxy Note 7, then you have a much bigger screen and a much smaller body. It's just, look at that. It's crazy. So honestly, this design is pretty outdated, but it's outdated in the sense of when you look at the competition, even looking at, the OnePlus 3, they have the exact same size display, and the iPhone is a little bit wider and much taller. It's just not, it's fine. If you're not using a case, the design actually feels really nice. Like when you're holding it normally, it feels really good. And, you feel like you have a decent grip on it. You feel like it's not really going to slip out of your hand all that much. The 6S is a little bit grippier than the 6, not by much, but just a little bit. And, you can hold on to it just fine. Obviously, the person who had it didn't hold on to it the best, but still, you can hold on to it pretty decently. It just feels a little bit wide, and it does kind of slip a little bit. If it hits your palm or something, it can slip out of your hand if you're not too careful. But it does have a good design. You have a 5.5-inch, and that is a full HD screen, IPS, no AMOLED technology, none of that stuff. You're not going to get any of that. However, the screen is still really good. I don't really have any complaints regarding the screen. I think it would have been great if it was Quad HD, but it's not. You compare it to that, and it's just, if I bump the brightness up on this, it's there's no comparison there. The screen on the Note is obviously a lot better than the iPhone, and if you compare it, even if you compare it to like the Galaxy S7, the screen is slightly bigger on the 6s Plus, but the body is just insanely bigger, and you still don't have Quad HD. And since this has the same design as the iPhone 8 Plus, that compared that competed per se with the Galaxy Note 8. And again, you can see between the Galaxy Note 8, I mean, look at the difference in the screen. That's just crazy. And, you know, comparing it to the Note 8, the Note 8 is a little bit taller, just a smidge taller, well, actually a decent chunk taller than the 6S Plus, you know, 7 Plus, 8 Plus, is slightly wider. So, take your pick. You know, you have, this phone is very rounded, whereas, you know, the Note 8 actually has some distinct curves or distinct edges because they made the aluminum a little bit flatter, so it's like you get more to grip. Whereas when you compare it to the Galaxy Note 7, you have this, it's very smooth, it's very symmetrical, it's very similar feeling to the iPhone. They actually do feel pretty similar in their kind of feel in the hand. The Note does feel a little bit smaller, but the iPhone does feel like it's, you know, just a little bit, it just feels beefier. Even if the Note's a little bit thicker, you wouldn't really tell because the width is really when you feel the size difference. And you can see the iPhone, you know, comparing it to the Note is just much, you know, like it's crazy. But nevertheless, still a decent design for the iPhone. Not really gonna hurt most people, and it still is a decent screen, and the design itself is still pretty alright. I do love the mute switch. I will say that. This is something that I absolutely love, this mute switch. I love this about iPhones. It's absolutely great. So you can see we have the ringer and silent. As you can tell, if we compare it to the Note 8, we have this Bixby button, which is not as good. You know, you press it and then all of a sudden Bixby pops up. Honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with that if they put that in the same place as the mute switch, if they put it above, but they did not. I wish they lowered the volume buttons down and moved the Bixby button up, but they didn't do that. Even on my Note 9, they still did not do that. S10, they still did not do that. I wish they did. If they did, I honestly wouldn't really complain about the button all that much, but they didn't, so I'm going to complain about it. You know, and you look at the OnePlus 3, we have a three-way switch, and it just works very, very well. So we have a mute switch on the OnePlus 3, so if you do like mute switches, then you can go OnePlus, and that will get you a mute switch for your phone, and it's really nice. So yeah, so that's the OnePlus 3, and which also came out at a similar time to the iPhone 6s Plus. They came out about 6 months apart from each other. This was still the highest end iPhone for the majority of 2016. So if you were in 2016, let's say you were in I don't know, August 2016. So right before the iPhone 7 came out, you had a few different options. At this point, the Galaxy S7 was on the market, the OnePlus 3 was on the market, and of course, if this was August, then Samsung had just released the Galaxy Note 7. You have plenty of options. And if you compare them to all these, the 6S Plus honestly is not, it doesn't seem like it holds up all that well, but it still does. It just in terms of the design, it feels a little bit out of date. But that's enough on the design. You do have the lightning port on the bottom for charging. You don't have wireless charging like the Galaxies, but you can add a card on the back of it, put it underneath the case, and that will give you a very slow, but albeit a form of wireless charging. You have the single firing speaker on the bottom, which is honestly not that good. A lot of people say it's better than the Note. I really don't think it sounds better than the Note. You have your headphone jack right there. And, you know, on the top you have absolutely nothing. On the side you have your volume buttons. These are very, very clicky. They work very, very well. You just have a lot of great options with that. So they're very, very clicky. You have your mute switch, which is fantastic, and you got your lock button, which is way too high on the chassis. Like this is ridiculous. You know, again, compare it to the Note 7. Look at that. Look at this. The button is all the way down here. It's so much nicer. When you're holding the phone, the button's right there. You can super easily press it. It's super comfy. But, you know, the volume buttons are about the same. But yeah, the buttons on the Note are a little bit better in my opinion. But they seem extra clicky on the iPhone. But that's my biggest problem is the placement of this lock button. And they still haven't fixed it. They still haven't fixed it. It's still in this place. I really don't like that. Not a fan. Next, with the iPhone 6s Plus, we will cover the battery life, and the battery life on this is pretty good. You can replace the battery if you want, but this has a, let's see if I can remember the battery size correctly. I think it was 2900, or 2700, something like that. It's a decent sized battery. For an iPhone, it's a decent sized battery, but of course we all know that Apple, with their optimization, it doesn't need to have an insanely huge battery. Because think about it. This has a 20 something 100 milliamp hour battery. This has a 3500 milliamp hour battery, and surprisingly, this battery life is a little bit better than this one. Not by a whole lot. They're pretty close, but this one just edges it out a little bit. Get it? Edged it out, because edges. But yeah, so the 6s Plus battery life is pretty good on this, and it's super easy to replace the battery if you need to. So I don't really have any complaints with that. And on that note, I don't really think there's much else. I don't like how there's no back button, of course. That's with anything iOS. I don't like the white fronts. I like having the black fronts or have them actually match the color. They don't do that. And, the design is pretty outdated, but it does still feel like a decent phone, like I mentioned. And there's not really much else that I have to honestly say about it. The call quality is good. That's all fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Cell signal is perfectly fine. Quality of just stuff in general is perfectly fine. Would I recommend the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus in 2019? The answer is an absolute heck yes. It is a great phone, and it's still my favorite iPhone, so I'm still partial to it even in 2019. Not the biggest fan of iPhones, but this is still my favorite one because I still do like the design. I still do like the big screen. I like the headphone jack. I do like having the headphone jack, and it's just, it's an all-around good phone. This is kind of a bit of a shorter review. It's not, of course I say shorter. It was like, how long has it been? Like 30, 40 minutes? But shorter than some of my other videos because it was honestly, like I said, I've used this thing for months. I've used a couple different 6s Pluses. So even though I've only owned this exact one for like a day, I still have plenty of experience with it to the point where I can make my judgment on it, especially when it's positive. So this phone is really, really nice. It's just one of those things that, it holds up very well. And I can understand why a lot of people still love this phone. I also like how it's still relatively repairable. Once we got to the iPhone 7, they got even much harder to repair than the iPhone 6s series. So this one is still easy to repair. It's still a very good phone. So you can get these for cheap, even if they're slightly cracked, and you can fix them and resell them because they're still worth a decent chunk, but you can also find good deals on them. So I think it's a sweet spot. Granted, this phone, now it's, almost 5 years old. It's still a good phone, and it's held up surprisingly well. I can see there's plenty of people who've had the 6s Plus who are probably just now thinking about upgrading to something like the 10s Max because, there wasn't that many big improvements from the 7 to the 8 to even the iPhone 10 if they didn't like the smaller size. So that's basically my conclusion. It's still a great phone. I do recommend it, and it is still my favorite iPhone. I do want to get a space gray version since it has the black front, and then test the dark mode on iOS 13. That's going to be really exciting. But in the meantime, this is my review of the iPhone 6s Plus. Anyway, guys, if you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments on the 6s Plus, if you guys want to ask me anything about it that I may not have mentioned in this review, just let me know. Anyway, guys, this is Untitled Studios with my iPhone 6s Plus review, signing out. And again, guys, let me know which device you want me to cover next in my next review, the Galaxy Note 7, the Galaxy Note 8, maybe something else here. Maybe you want me to cover something I haven't covered before, like the OnePlus 3. Right now, the polls that I put out put the Note 7 and the Note 8 on top. So I will drop another poll once I upload this video, or maybe even before I upload this video, so you guys can make the decision on which phone will be next in the review lineup. Anyway, guys, this is Untitled Studios, yet again, signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys enjoy this review in 2019 of the iPhone 6s Plus. Peace. Well, looks like I forgot to mention this. So, if you have an iPhone 6s Plus, And you're wondering, compared to all your other phones, how well does this hold up? So let's say, you have an iPhone 6s Plus, someone has a Note 4, someone has a OnePlus 3, someone has a Galaxy S7, someone has a Galaxy Note Fan Edition, someone has a Galaxy Note 8, someone has a Galaxy Note 7. Where do you fit in amongst all these other Android phones, especially ones that came out in 2016, 2015, around the time of the 6S Plus? Well, it's very simple. In terms of how you're going to stand out, you're not. Everyone has this phone. Everyone has a phone that looks exactly like this phone. You're not really going to be all that unique. Now, if you have something like a Galaxy Note 8, obviously this is a much newer phone. It has a lot more features. It has that S Pen, so you have plenty of options there, and it's just overall a better phone. But then, let's say you got something like a Galaxy Note 4, and the iPhone 6s Plus would hold up better than the Note 4. The Note 4, it has a removable battery. That's really nice. It's unique. It definitely is something that's nice. You don't see them all that much anymore, but, you do have the problem of the stock software not being up to date, constantly lagging. If you're technically minded, that's no big deal. But, of course, when it comes to the hardware, there's not really, this is a little bit nicer, even if I prefer this. Then, of course, you have something like the OnePlus 3, similar design. Honestly, OnePlus 3 I think is more exciting, but you still have the 6S Plus, you still have iMessage, you still have FaceTime, you have all those benefits. If you have an Apple Watch or AirPods, which I did try AirPods and I actually do kind of like them, then you have that. And of course, if you compare it to something really rare like the Note 7, obviously the Note 7 is going to be shutting you down because the Note 7 has so many other features, and it's also very unique. No one, and I repeat, no one that you know has a Note 7. Right? Am I right? We can discuss the reasons why, but no one has a Note 7. Everyone has this phone. Now, granted, this one doesn't explode, but this one's better in every other way. So, I don't know what the point of what I just did was, but it's basically just saying, like, hey, how well does your phone hold up compared to other phones, at least the other phones that I have? And I still like this phone, but it's still my least favorite out of the ones that I have. However, again, even though everyone's got it, there's going to be parts, there's going to be plenty of people who you might relate to and be like, hey, you have the same phone. That's really cool. So you have that. So yeah, that's basically my final stance on the 6S Plus. So again, this was Intelitech Studios signing out. Oh, please don't scratch my Note 7. This was Intelitech Studios signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video. And again, you pick the review of the next device. Peace.